Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show of today's SY0-701 Security Plus Study Group. Hey, everybody. Welcome to 2025. This is our first Security Plus Study Group of the new year. So glad to have you with us. If you are here live, settle in. We got about 9 minutes, just under, to go. We'll start at the top of the hour. If you're here on a replay, it's still 9 minutes, although you could fast forward if you really, really, really wanted to. But why would you do that when you can hang out with us? If you'd like to join us, do I have the right graphics loaded? I do. How about that one? There we go. Now we can go in and click the button to show. Let's see if I can show. How about I put me on the screen? That's in the way. How about right? Oh, what is going on? Now I got problems with this. Now I got things I got to fix. Just as I go live, I see things that don't look quite right. That was not what I wanted from the configuration that I have here. I don't know why it's looking that way. Oh boy, that is just big. It is a big, ugly border. Can I turn it off? I can, but none of the matting is right. None of my clips are right. That's fantastic. Oh, the things we go through to try to get these up and running sometimes. Oh, there's always something. But that's half the fun of it, isn't it? We can kind of see what in the world's going on. Maybe I can fix it. Since this is the pre-show, let's see. We're going to get rid of the border for a bit because that's just a mess. And the position and size looks, look at that. Look at now I'm really messed up. Now I'm super. Now I've got mask. Look at my head. Look at that. Now we got weirdness going on. Oh boy. I don't want Illuma on that. I don't. You know what we're going to do? We're going to change something here real quick. You might see things go a little bit wacky when you on the screen, but that's okay. I'm busy changing things on my side. And we're going to click it so that everything looks a lot better again. Let's restore this. Here we go. Oh, that looks, see, it's a different graphic. That's okay. That's by design. But let's see if everything looks the way it should. It does. So it takes a little bit of extra. You know what you do? You turn it all off and back on again. Not technically what I did, but I changed things around. That's why we have a pre-show after all, so I can try these things out. Make sure everything's working the way I would expect it to work. Now, is this still showing the recording? It is, so we're good there. Hey, chat room. Hope everybody's doing good. Finally can see everyone. We got everybody checking in. Hey, Mal, good to see you. How are things down in St. Vincent? Hope things are well. They're in the Grenadines. Hopefully warmer than it is here in the U.S. It is. It's a little cold. It's the polar vortex. That's what's coming through. So let's see if I also, now that I've updated that, did that change? I'm going to look at one other thing in here. Hyperdeck, sources, multi-view, audio. That all looks good. Did it change that? Did not change that. Okay. This is good to know. So that's why the recording is still working. That's why this is working. This is actually what I wanted from the very beginning. So we'll have to see if this all works out. We got about just over 5 minutes to go. And we will get started with the live stream. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. If you would like to participate, you can go to the link that's right here. You can see this on my screen. And that's what I was trying to work on when we were doing this. Here we go. This is what I have here. If you go to professormesser.com/QA, you can put your virtual pin in our cushion here. And you can see where everybody else is checking in from. I see Malk down there. There he is. I've got folks checking in from all over. Thanks for being here, by the way. If you're watching this in a replay, thanks for watching on the replay. It's quite nice of you as well. Let's bring back up the chat room. Super bright. Let's turn that down a little bit. My eyes. Let's see. Whenever I start the live stream, because it looks to you like I'm in this very dark room, and I am. I close up all the window shades, which also help for audio. But it does get really dark in here, and it looks like I sit in here all the time in the dark, but I don't. Not really. Really, most of the time the windows are open. It's actually quite nice in here. It's just right now it looks like it's super dark. Unless you see me In this view, it looks like, wow, it's super bright in here. Look at all the light. Wow, this is really, oh wait, no, it's dark. That's because the lights are right. You can't see the lights, but they're right up here. And they're just very directional. They don't bounce around a lot in here. Plus I have them turned way down, and I have my camera sort of turned up so you can see me. That makes it kind of nice on the eyes. Jacksonville didn't get snow, just a lot of icy rain, huh? I have family over in the Tallahassee area. They sent me pictures of snow this morning, which was crazy. Although growing up, we did get snow from time to time. It's just not been there lately. So not completely unusual, but hopefully that gives you a perspective of something. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what can happen here in Florida. For those of you that don't know, we are based in Central Florida. So we didn't get snow here, thankfully, but it's it's freezing. What is it, 50? We don't know what to do. What is the temperature here? Let's have a look real quick. So for those of you that work in Freedom units, it's 44 Fahrenheit. That's exactly what we would work through. Hopefully that gives you something there. It's not 50, it's 44. See, it's so much more freezing. We don't know. Our blood's so thin here. We have no perspective of cold. That's how I know I would never live somewhere that's cold because of the snow. That's one of those challenges. So let's see what we've got today. I have a lot to work through to get all of this done. Although I have family in Canada, so they are definitely a little more chilly up there. I got family in Montana. They are checking in, kind of cold, kind of chilly. There is coolness going on. So much that I put on a sweater. That doesn't happen very much. I had to wear socks. We're spoiled here in Florida. We are just not used to it. But that's okay. It's kind of nice every once in a while to have a little bit of change of pace. And what's good having all these cold clothes if you don't get to wear them? So that's another benefit, I think. That's super nice. Ontario, yeah, -8 Fahrenheit. You don't have to talk. Whenever I talk to my family in Canada, they don't use the Fahrenheit. They use the Celsius, which is fine. I'm fine with that. Although, what is the temperature they sort of connect each other? Is it -40, somewhere in there? They're sort of the same. There's of course a line that gets crossed. I'm not in any way, shape, or form associated at all with the details of meteorology. I know nothing. Is it -20? Okay, that's where it intersects. That's where it's all the same. That's what we need to work. Folks, for the folks wondering, yeah, we're not really doing the live stream quite yet. This is the pre-show. Your people are wondering, what is this we're seeing here? You will see me here in just a moment. We're getting there. We have less than a minute, 45 seconds to go. I should probably make sure that all my stuff is up and running here. Cameras look good. Cameras are good. We're recording down here. You can't really see the Cylon very well. There he is. That looks okay. I think we're in really good shape. I think we're so close to going on that. We're almost set up. And I think I have questions ready to go. I think everything is synced up. We're going to find out in a moment. We've already seen weirdness going on. I'm thinking that is the end of the weirdness. So we will see if there's no more weirdness associated with that. Let's bring up our keynote. This needs to be closer so I can actually touch it. Real key with the tablet that we actually are able to interact with it. There we go. And I think there is the top of the hour. We've got this here. We can bring up a live stream info. Let's do the live stream, everybody. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the January 2025 Professor Messer SY0-701 Security Plus Study Group. This is our first Security Plus Study Group of the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. We're almost at that point in January here on the 22nd as we record this that we're not able to say that anymore. I think we've played that one out pretty much at this point. But Happy New Year anyway. Thanks for joining us. We're so glad to have you here. In this hour, I will go through questions and answers that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Hopefully that gives you some work you can do to help with your studies. We would love for you, if you are here live, we'd love for you to join along with us. I want to give you some instructions on how you could do that. Simply pop open a new browser window and head over to the link that you see right here, professormesser.com/QA, and you also can follow along with us and answer questions. Now, for those of you that have been on these live streams before, we do one question at the very beginning that's really from last month. So it gives you a chance to see if you know what the answer might be associated with this. We'll have to see if you're familiar with this one or if you remember it. The question there is, a company stores all the cryptographic keys for their data center in a centralized and hardened system. Which of the following would best describe this system? Would it be the ones we have here? Would it be a TPM, a proxy, an IPS, an HSM, or a secure enclave? Now, our standing rule in the live stream is please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, we are going to see how well you know this by visiting the link here, professormesser.com/QA. That is the link you want to go to. Once you go to that link, you can just stay on that link for the duration of the live stream. The questions will automatically change on your screen behind the scenes. So we'll have to see how well you remember this one from last week. While you're busy working on that question, we will come back to this question in just a moment. I want to remind you that we do one of these study groups every month. Thank you for joining us this month. And we have an entire archive of these always available on our YouTube channel. Where is that, you ask? Well, I'm glad you did. It's at professormesser.com/YouTube. That's where you can find us. And if you like this video, we'd love it if you gave a thumbs up. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you could even subscribe. We'd love to have you join us there. Of course, we have a weekly pop quiz question that I send out over email, on Twitter, on Instagram, on other sources, LinkedIn. You can always find those by visiting that site by going to professormesser.com/ the name of the site you would like to find us on, whether that's Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever it happens to be. And if we are there, you will find us. And if we're not there, then you won't find us, but let me know about it. Maybe there's a social media site you would like me to be on. I would be glad to see if I could join that one as well. It's always interesting to see how that works out. Now, remember that today we are going to be talking about the SY0-701 exam. This is an exam that was released on November the 7th of 2023. So it's been out for just over a year now. That's pretty good from your purposes, from your perspective. That's really good because you don't have to worry about this particular exam version phasing out or retiring or going away. We are right in the middle of using these particular study materials, which means that the estimated retirement date for this exam is May of 2027. So you've got plenty of time to study. As we sit here at the very beginning of 2025, that's one thing that we don't have to worry about, thankfully. Very glad when that all works out. Of course, we have a single exam to earn your A+ certificate, or excuse me, Network Security Plus certification. It is a maximum of 90 questions. Some people let me know that they didn't get 90 questions on their exam. That's because they could ask you for fewer than 90 questions on this exam, but the exam score always stays the same. On a scale from 100 to 900, you have to score 750. So keep that in mind. It's going to be important going through the details of this. And if you are familiar with the previous versions of the Security Plus exam, very similar in structure and style. Obviously, the questions and the topics are different than previous versions, but it's multiple choice and it's performance-based questions. We'll talk more about performance-based questions in just a moment. Now, not only do we have our absolutely free training course available online, you can go to YouTube at any time and watch any of the videos associated with that. We don't keep anything behind a paywall. There's no registration you have to do. There's nothing extra. You simply visit YouTube or visit professormesser.com for the entire index of absolutely free SY0-701 training materials. But if you think you would like to have additional training materials, such as course notes, practice exams, and more, You can find those on our website. You can simply go to professormesser.com/701SB. That is our 701 Success Bundle. And you can see that we've got downloadable versions of the videos. We have audio versions of those videos available in MP3 format, and there's much more there. Find out all about it at professormesser.com/701SB. We also have a replay of this immediately available on YouTube right after we're done. But of course, we do have an audio-only replay that I produce, and I put it in podcast format so that it can be downloaded automatically into your favorite podcast listening program. If you'd like to add it manually to that program, you can go to professormesser.com/podcast. I also have these available on some of the streaming media services. So if you're on Spotify, for example, just search for Professor Messer, and you will find us right there. You can listen right on Spotify as streaming audio. That certainly helps a little bit as well. About a day after we're done, you'll notice that there is information in the YouTube video description that's brand new. It's timestamps of exactly what we are doing and when we did it. These don't happen automatically. We've tried automatic things. They're just awful. What you need is someone to listen in, watch what's going on, and put in all of those timestamps if you are hoping for any type of accuracy. Fortunately, we have the best in Lori, my marketing manager, who goes through this video. Hi, Lori. And she puts in all of these timestamps so that all of us can find this information later on. You can go back years and find those details. So don't forget that there's a lot of good stuff in that YouTube video description. You can always find the details of that on any of our live YouTube replays. Also, when we're not doing this live stream, you'll find us over on Discord. We'd love for you to join. Go to professormesser.com/Discord. Make sure you have a look at that. There's thousands of folks there that are studying for their A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and other certifications. And that's usually where we will hang out and talk back and forth. We have just a general chat. If there's just general questions you'd like to ask. And then we have specific study group channels that you can always visit to help with your studies. Eventually, you will need to take your Security Plus exam. And if you are in the U.S., Canada, or a U.S. territory, you can get a discounted voucher. Instead of paying full price over at the CompTIA site, get the same voucher at our site, but pay less, which is kind of nice. Save a little bit of money. Not only do you get your voucher for less money, but if you purchase on my site, I will give you a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. This is a book I wrote that gives you some tips and tricks for studying and some tips and tricks on what you can do during the exam to hopefully give you a few extra points. And sometimes a few extra points is exactly what you need. You can find that over on our website, specifically at professormesser.com/vouchers. That is the page you'd like to go to, or just follow the vouchers link from the main menu of the professormesser.com website. Let's talk about the question we asked earlier. This is a question from last month, remember. Our rewind question asks, a company stores all of the cryptographic keys for their data center in a centralized and hardened system. Which of the following would best describe this system? Would it be a TPM, a proxy, an IPS, an HSM, or a secure enclave? A secure enclave. Let's see what your answers were. 50% of you, better than last time, by the way, said an HSM is the right answer. We have 32% of you, let's do a pie chart so we can see this a little bit better. 33% of you say it's a secure enclave. We have 11% that say TPM, 3% say IPS, and 2% say proxy. So this is one of those questions where you really have to understand the devices that we use for security. And these devices for security really focus on different capabilities depending on what you're trying to do. But if you have a lot of cryptographic keys, maybe you have all of the keys for all of your web servers, and those SSL keys need to be in one place that are secure, one of the ways that you could do that is by using an HSM. There it is. And that's really what an HSM might look like. You can install HSM software yourself, or HSM comes as a purpose-built appliance, because some HSM devices have specialized cryptographic hardware inside of these devices, which is kind of nice. If you need something to do that encryption and decryption process, you can take it off of the load of your web servers and put it onto its own device. And it does that with some cryptographic accelerators, which is kind of nice. These days, we're getting pretty good with cryptography, but you never know when you want to increase the capabilities of your web server and offload that cryptographic function to a third-party product. And HSM does that very, very well. So that's our rewind question for those of you that have seen that one before. This is to make sure that we can go in and answer these questions and make sure that you can interact with the Q&A that we have. But HSM, you did a much better job this month, is the right answer. Secure Enclave is the security technology built into many of our mobile devices. You'll certainly see that there is functionality for a single device for a secure enclave, but that wasn't the question here. We were talking about storing every cryptographic key for everything in their data center in a single centralized and hardened system. That certainly doesn't speak to Secure Enclave, which is more of a personal security technology built into generally mobile devices. We've got TPM, also a cryptographic function you might find on a desktop computer or a laptop computer. We also have proxy and IPS as some of the options. Obviously, a proxy is a middleman to network communication, not exactly what we were talking about here. And an intrusion prevention system is usually looking for vulnerabilities or bad traffic coming through the network and stopping it right there. The answer here, and the one that most of you got right, indeed, is HSM. Well done with that one. Well, now let's do some new questions. And as many of you know on our study groups, our first brand new question is one that is a performance-based question. Performance-based questions are used to ask you about the same study materials that you've already gone through, those objectives, and we'll talk more about the objectives later on today, but those objectives could be asked of you in a lot of different ways. For example, I asked you about a number of those objectives right here in a multiple choice question. We're very familiar with multiple choice because there's a question and then multiple answers that you could have selected from. But you'll notice here that this functionality for the multiple choice, you could have just guessed and you had a 20% chance of getting it right. On your exam, you usually get 4 answers presented to you, which means you have 25% chance of getting it right. But the folks at CompTIA want to make things a little bit harder than that on you. We don't want to give you everything for free. So instead, we're going to give you a question with multiple answers presented in usually different ways. It could be a matching question, a fill in the blank. They could put you, well, for Security Plus, you won't be put at a command prompt because there are no command prompt commands you need to know for Security Plus, but other exams you could get that. It could be a drag and drop question. It could be one where you're pulling down menu items. There's a lot of different ways to present this information. And as I often tell people, it doesn't matter how they ask the question. If you know the material, you will be able to answer the question regardless of how it is presented to you. So I have for you a performance-based question this month that you haven't seen before. We always write a new one every month. And here is our performance-based question of the month. I want you to select the most likely attack types for these specific indicators. So I have 4 different indicators of attack, and I have for you on the screen 7 different attack types. So I want you to match these up. Now, obviously, I only have 4 indicators, which means you're only going to matching 4 of the attack types. That means 3 will be left over at the end. I did the math. I counted them out, so I know that to be the case. Let's step through each one of these. For those of you listening in on the audio side, our 4 attack indicators are: a web server CPU is at a constant 100% utilization. Private database information can be viewed in a browser-based app. The third one is a user's phone contains apps not found on the official App Store. And the last one is user accounts are locked due to excessive authentication failures. So there are 7 different attacks that I want you to match with those 4. Those are directory traversal, downgrade, SQLI, DDoS, brute force, spraying, or side loading. If you think you know the answer, please answer using the link on your screen at professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You want to use that link on your screen to answer each of these. This is more of a question where you will be able to put in and understand what the different attack types are. But for the purposes of putting this in on our answer front end, it's really just a text. So if you think they're already in the right order, simply put in A1, B2, C3, D4. That they are not in that order, by the way. Just so you're aware, that's not really the case. So let's see how you do with this one. Again, for those listening in, the indicators are a web server CPU is at a constant 100% utilization. Private database information can be viewed in a browser-based app. A user's phone contains apps not found on the official App Store. And user accounts are locked due to excessive authentication failures. The attacks are directory traversal, downgrade, SQLi, DDoS, brute force, spraying, and side loading. Let's see how you do with this one. If you think you know the answers to these, lock them in, folks. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. See how you do with this one. I think this one may be one that many of you get right. It was kind of hard to find an attack type that was unique in its indicator. I didn't want there to be an indicator and then have multiple attack types that it could be, which you certainly could do that. But this is not one of those scenarios. I want there to be a one-to-one, which means, as I mentioned, there'll be 3 left over at the end of this. So let's see how you do with these capabilities. Obviously, we're only looking at these 7. So I'm wanting you to find the most likely attack type. Now, obviously, these attack types could show other indicators as well. I just don't have enough room on the screen to put every possible indicator for every possible attack type. So I chose 4 here that are relatively straightforward. Hopefully, you'll be able to see that. See if you know the answer. For those of you wondering if there's a particular format you need to put these in, there is not. I just need you to remember what these are because it is an open-ended text-based response. I'm not compiling the answers for this one. So we'll never really know. I guess we will really know if I go back and look at them, but I'm not counting them up just because it's a little more difficult to match these together online. There might be a matching function in the software that I'm just not taking advantage of yet. Another thing for me to look at when we are done with this. Let's see how you did with this question. Again, I wanted you to select the most likely attack types for these indicators. The indicators are a web server CPU is at a constant 100% utilization. Private database information can be viewed in a browser-based app. A user's phone contains apps not found on the official App Store, and user accounts are locked due to excessive authentication failures. Are these directory traversal, downgrade, SQLi, DDoS, brute force, spraying, or side loading? Let's step through each one of them and see what I think it is, and then you're going to tell me what you think it is. Well, you're not really going to tell me. You already did, but we're going to see how you did with this one. The first one is a web server CPU is at a constant 100% utilization. I would say in that particular case that other people trying to access that web server would probably find that that particular service is not available. Their ability to use that service was denied, and we refer to that obviously as a denial of service. In the case of a web server, it's very likely that it is a distributed form of a denial of service attack. You have a lot of people hitting one machine all at the same time. And so that is a very good example of where denial of service and distributed denial of service can cause a machine to become unavailable to others. And if it's at a constant 100% utilization, it probably is in that particular issue. Probably a problem with that. Next one on our list is a private database information can be viewed in a browser-based app. Now, normally, if we're on this configuration and people are accessing a database app the way they are supposed to, that works fine. But how are they able to gain access to private information that they would normally not have access to? That's certainly a concern. But how would you be able to do that in a browser-based application? One of the ways you can do that is by working around the code of the application itself, being able to find ways to not find exactly the direct access to the database. Instead, we get indirect access to the database by injecting SQL within the communication. So SQLi is a shortcut for SQL injection. That's your abbreviation for this one. SQL injection is the one that would allow you to get that. So hopefully, if you haven't worked with the SQL injection, the video we do for SQL injection is a pretty good one. You should go look at that because I demonstrate an actual injection. You're able to see it happen in real time. It's incredibly easy to be able to do this, which is why whenever you hear about a SQL injection in the news, it is a big deal because they did not do the proper filtering in the application to prevent that type of injection from occurring. So that was what we would see in that particular case. Let's do the third one. The third one is a user's phone contains apps not found on the official app store. We're not talking about me. It wasn't my machine. Somebody else did this. And the way that someone was able to install an app without going to the official app store is through sideloading. Sideloading is a process for doing exactly that, is getting around the official channels to install a separate piece of software. That is not what you should be doing. That is certainly a bad idea. If you get into the world of installing from anywhere you would like, now you are first probably circumventing existing security controls in being able to do that. But certainly, this is a very good example. Now you are opening up your machine to be infected because you have really no idea where that particular code came from. So that is a very good choice in that particular case. And the last one on here is user accounts are locked due to excessive authentication failures. And in this one, we're going to choose brute force. Brute force was the answer. That is when somebody tries your username and tries one password. Then they try a second password. Then they try a third password. Then we try, and eventually they're doing so many of these that when they get down to it, they cause the account to lock itself out because of too many authentication attempts. Now that means there were 3 attack types we did not use. And a number of people were saying, well, what directory traversal? We could have used directory traversal to gain access to private database information. Well, you could, but that would assume that the database and the web server are on the same machine. And very rarely do we run into that particular situation. In fact, that's probably an uncommon situation when you get into it. Now, if you're doing this in your lab, you might do that. But in this particular case, that is an unusual configuration that you will commonly not find. And even then, getting access to the database may not be that easy as simply traversing a particular directory. And again, go back to the question which asked the most likely attack type. And in this case, the most likely attack type is indeed going to be SQL injection. In fact, 100% of the time, SQL injection is going to work if it's something available. Directory traversal, not going to be 100% every time. So that's how we are going to choose SQL injection over directory traversal. There is also another one we didn't choose was a downgrade attack. If you're doing something like an SSL stripping, for example, downgrade attack is a good example of one. There was none of these that described you trying to access a device and having the security downgraded in the middle of that conversation. So not going to cause the problem or any of these issues or indicators that we happen to have here. And the last one, spraying, this is one that you probably could mix up with brute force. Obviously, both of those involve someone who is trying to identify your password by trying different examples of what it could be. But a spraying attack is only going to try a limited number of those. So it might try 1 or 2 or maybe 3, and then it will stop. Spraying intentionally is designed not to lock out someone's account, because as soon as someone's account gets locked out and they weren't the ones to lock it, immediately we're trying to figure out who is trying to access your account. This is something that happens to me all the time. I get emails from Yahoo about the Yahoo email address that I have. I get messages from my web servers about people trying to SSH into my server. Little do they know you can't directly SSH into my server. They could try every possible password in the world and you're never getting in by design. But they don't know that, so they keep trying and I keep getting the messages. So that's a really good example of how you could have switched a couple of these up, but in the end, when we're trying to find the most likely indicator, we know that web server CPU at a constant 100% utilization, distributed denial of service, undoubtedly. Private database information viewed in a browser-based app, SQL injection is really the most likely way to receive that information or gain access to that information. A user's phone containing apps not found in the official app store, that's definitely side loading, no question there. And user accounts locked due to excessive authentication failures Indeed, that is brute force, not spraying. It would be brute force. Those are the 4 that we were looking for. Hopefully you're familiar with those. There are obviously many, many other attack types you need to know about. And for all of them, you do need to understand what those indicators might be. That is almost a word-for-word description of what you're expected to know from the official exam objectives. Make sure you have a look at those and are familiar with them. That was our performance-based question of the month. Hopefully you did pretty well on that one. I think most people did. Let's now shift gears back to a multiple choice question and see how you do with this brand new question that asks, a company is writing new security policies to include concerns over GDPR. Which of the following would be the most likely focus of these policies? Would it be customer privacy options, strong encryption protocols, authentication factor usage, SSO requirements for new applications, and an SPF disposition list? That's 5 different things, all of them from your exam objectives. Only one of them is going to be the right answer. If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. Instead, you want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Again, please no answers in the chat room. We'll have to figure out what these are, and no hints in the chat room. That's another one that can help you. Obviously, knowing these abbreviations is going to be a good one, something we have to think about. This is very common use of these abbreviations. Notice that you will very rarely get a question on this exam where they ask you what the words in the abbreviation mean. They almost never ask that. I wouldn't say almost never. They never ask that. You will never get a question that says, what do the initials SPF mean? You'll never get that. But they do use the abbreviations in these questions and the answers, naturally thinking you're going to know how these are used. So that is a very good example of why it's important to know these particular acronyms, but not just know the words. In fact, sometimes the words don't even matter. What really matters is, what does that mean? What does it stand for? What does this have to do with technology, and how would you implement it? So always a little bit extra to be able to do this. Hopefully you're familiar with some of these abbreviations. They might come into play for this particular question and the answers that we have on here. Let's see how you do with this one. This question asks, a company is writing new security policies to include concerns over GDPR. Which of the following would be the most likely focus of these policies? Would it be customer privacy options, strong encryption protocols, authentication factor usage, SSO requirements for new applications, and SPF disposition list? Let's close our poll and see how we did. You can see that 72% of you say the answer is customer privacy options is what we were going to use. We have 15% of you that say the answer is strong encryption protocols. 6% of you say authentication factor usage. 5% say SSO requirements for new applications. And then 2% of you say SPF disposition list. So we have a few here to choose from. Obviously, 72% of you answering customer privacy options is a pretty strong set of answers. And that's probably because most of you are familiar with the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. That is primarily, almost exclusively, a European Union regulation, although the similarities to this in other regulations are starting to branch out away from this, but something that is definitely focused currently in the European Union and its general area, and it provides data protection for citizens in the EU. Now, this means that anything that is specific to you, some PII, personal type of private information, something that would directly correlate back to you as an individual, that's the type of information that we're trying to protect. The GDPR gives you a little bit more control as a user as to where your data exists and what you can do, or what other companies can do with that data. So as a subject of the data, you get to control that data. Now, this used to be called a right to be forgotten. did not turn out to be quite as strong as that from a regulation perspective, but you in the EU can do things like ask for particular accounts to be deleted, specific information to be removed from a website, that type of thing. Nobody can really be forgotten on the internet, but this gives you at least more control over your data and something that people are able to take advantage of in those particular countries within the EU. So GDPR was what we were looking for. And since GDPR deals with that personal information, something that maybe you'd like to protect a little bit better, then customer privacy options is certainly the right answer. 72% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, GDPR itself does not have any specific or detailed mandates regarding what type of protocols you would use to encrypt information, much less which ones would be stronger or weaker than another. Obviously, that's something you have to obviously be concerned about in the world of security, but it's not a specific primary focus of GDPR. We have authentication factor usage. 6% of you chose that one. Authentication factors would be things like something you know, somewhere you are, something you have. Those types of factors can be very useful during the authentication process to really check to see if you are who you say you are, but that's not part of GDPR. That's just something you would use during just a well-designed authentication function. SSO requirements for new applications, your single sign-on functionality of an application is not at all related to GDPR. It's kind of nice to have, of course. Having a single sign-on just makes it a lot easier to be able to use the resources on your particular network. It has nothing to do with the privacy of your personal information and how it works. And if you're working at all with email, you've probably done a lot with SPF. SPF is certainly an important consideration when you get into the world of dealing with email and having to determine, is that email spam or is that email legitimate? And Sender Policy Framework, or SPF, is designed to give you that information on whether this really came from a legitimate email source or whether this was something that's spoofed by someone else. Perhaps this is spam. And in the case of GDPR, GDPR is not related to how spam determination and SPF and the other tools we use to determine where spam comes from. That's not related to GDPR, and only 2% of you chose that one. Indeed, 72% of you got that one absolutely right. That is the right answer. Customer privacy options. Anytime you see GDPR, you should naturally be thinking about private information and your personal control of that private information. Well done with that question. Let's do another one. We'll start with the question that comes from the very beginning of the exam objectives. So if you are at all familiar with those, you can answer this question that asks, which of the following would be categorized as an operational deterrent? Which of the following would be categorized as an operational deterrent? Would it be motion detector, separation of duties, firewall, door lock, or reception desk? Now, if you think you know the answer, follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, we want to be able to understand what this might give us. Let's see if you know. Which of the following would be categorized as an operational deterrent? Is it motion detector, separation of duties, firewall, door lock, or reception desk? We're going to go through deterrent control types in a moment. We specifically are asking about operational deterrents. Maybe that's a little bit of a hint for you, so you can break these things apart and see what the differences might be. If you think you know the answer, follow that link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. See if you know what this one is. All of these obviously are important security controls. We need to know all of these. In fact, there's a lot more security controls. You can think of any type of security control, and in your mind, you should figure out where in that matrix would we put this. Well, I think I put the matrix on here. If not, it's in that very first video of the course, and we talk about how we would categorize and fit some of these security controls in that list. Let's see how well. A lot of you locking in your answers pretty quick for this one. Maybe you really, really know the answer to this one and what it would be. Let's see how you did. It asks, which of the following would be categorized as an operational deterrent? Is that a motion detector, separation of duties, firewall, door lock, or reception desk? Let's see what you chose. We'll stop the poll, and we can see that we're a little torn on this one. Almost a tie for first place between reception desk at 35% and a separation of duties at 33%. We've got 13% that said a motion detector is an operational deterrent. 10% of you say it's a firewall, and 9% say it is door locks. So let's talk about a deterrent. Let's take that word first and sort of break it out. If we're trying to deter someone from performing a particular function, we're trying to prevent this from happening. We're trying to discourage it. We're trying to scare you off. We're trying to make sure that you're not able to directly access whatever it is you're trying to get to. So this would be something that would cause someone pause, that would cause someone to think about what they were doing. So if there is a splash screen in an application that says this is a secure environment, only log in if you are authorized to be here. Okay, well that might make me think for a moment that maybe I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. We have the threat of demotion. Your manager walks in and says, if you do this, you're going to be sweeping up around here instead of doing whatever it is you do. They don't know what you do, so that's what they probably tell you. The front reception desk. Obviously, someone's sitting at the desk. We can't sneak around them to get inside unless we say, look over there. That's not usually how security works. So that's not the issue. And then we have posted warning signs. Those are good deterrents. Those are something that we would choose. Now, this question specifically asked about an operational deterrent. And if we look at these control type examples that we have, there's a lot of different control types that we have listed. But for an operational deterrents usually involve people. It's usually where we are working through what people are doing. And when we work through what people are doing, we know that they can be things like, if you want to prevent this type of attack, a guard shack has people inside, and that would certainly help prevent what's going on. Then we have things like a property patrols for detective control types. We have contacting authorities if we happen to find someone who broke in. But the one that we were interested in was a operational deterrent, and a reception desk is a very good way to deter someone from getting into your building. If there's no one there inside the front door, then it becomes very, very easy for someone to sneak their way in because nobody's looking. But when you have a reception desk at the front, everybody has to stop at the reception desk. You have to sign in. Sometimes you have to provide ID. I have gone to places where I have had to also hand over any electronic devices I had with me. There are certain places where you're not able to bring in your phone. You have to leave it at the front desk. These are pretty big deterrents to prevent any type of any ne'er-do-wells, any wrongdoing. So in this case, the options that we had, we were looking for something that would stop someone from gaining access, and there would be a human aspect to it, the operational part of it. So if we look at this list again, motion detectors, no humans really associated with that. Separation of duties would be more of a policy. There's not a person there telling you which duties you are able to do and which ones you are not. It's simply built into a broad set of policies that determine how these tasks are broken up. A firewall, there's no people on a firewall. Not technically true because someone has to put it in, someone has to configure it, but during its normal operation, there's no human being involved with any of that. And a door lock, no human door locks, at least not at this point. We don't have to worry about that. The only one of these that is both a deterrent and it is an operationally categorized deterrent would be one where humans were involved, and a reception desk is a perfect example of that. Although we didn't get a majority, that was the plurality of the answers. 35% of you got that one right, and that is the right answer. That's exactly what we were looking for. Well done. Let's get to another question in just a moment. But before we do, let me remind you that this Security Plus exam is a big exam. A lot of different topics. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of objectives you have to go through. In fact, my Security Plus course, 121 videos, over 15 hours of content. That was as tight as I could do it. That was as small as I could make it and still have it provide the information you need to pass this exam. I decided that that's a lot of videos, 121 videos, and as much as I would love for everyone to watch every video, I know that there is reality. It's not practical for everyone to watch every video, but how could I get the information to you, even in the case that you're either not able or not really needing to go through every video? Well, a great way to do it is through my course notes. I took all of the important text, all of the important tables, all of the important graphics from my videos, and I put them into these course notes. This is the PDF version of the course notes. There's my control types right there. So I told you it was the first video of my course. It's also the first section of my course notes because the course notes follow the exact same numbering scheme as the CompTIA official exam objectives. So all of the important charts, all of the important tables, the important graphics, the important explanations, they are all in here. That was the plan from the very beginning. And if you get these notes, not only do you have the option to get them in that digital version, but I've also got a physical version of the notes available. Notice it is identical to what we were just looking at. It's just the physical version of these. And a lot of people like to have a physical book. And if you buy the physical book, I print them on demand and ship them over to you. While you're waiting on that shipment, you will get the digital version for free. You can download it immediately. Those are my course notes. Maybe that's something that can help you with your studies. That's available on my website. You can find them at professormesser.com/701cn. That is where you can go to get those course notes. Maybe they can help you with your studies. Maybe you take your own notes. Either way, you've got an option. And it's another great way to help support what we do here at professormesser.com. Let's do another question. We've got more here. This next question, it's a long question. Let's get through the whole details of this. It asks, a user received an email from a Microsoft domain informing them of a free laptop available on the Microsoft.com website. After clicking the link, the user's computer was infected with malware. Which of the following would best describe this attack? Is this a watering hole attack, phishing, disinformation attack, SQL injection, or brand impersonation? I have a few to choose from there. Now, I took this question from my spam folder. So this is ripped from the headlines, as they say. The question again asks, a user received an email from a Microsoft domain informing them of a free laptop available on the Microsoft.com website. After clicking the link, the user's computer was infected with malware. Which of the following would best describe this attack? Is it a watering hole attack? Is it phishing? Is it a disinformation attack? Is it SQL injection? Or is it brand impersonation? You think you know the answer? Go to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. It's got to be one of these, right? We'll figure out what the answer is. See if lock it in. A lot of people been getting their answers in quick. I wonder if we really know what these happen to be, or if we don't know what this one. It could be one, maybe could be two of these. Now I'll explain to you why it is only one of these. Of course, I can tell you it's really only one of these because the question asks which of the following would best describe this attack. That's what we're shooting for. See if you know the answer for this one. For those of you answering this, let's see how you did. The question again asks, a user received an email from a Microsoft domain informing them of a free laptop available on the Microsoft.com website. After clicking the link, the user's computer was infected with malware. Which of the following would best describe this attack? Is it a watering hole attack, phishing, disinformation attack, SQL injection, or brand impersonation? Now, I think in this one, I could have chosen perhaps maybe 3 different options here get close. But which one is it really? Let's find out what you answered. Get rid of that message on the screen and stop the poll. And we can see that 64% of you say the answer is phishing. That's what you chose for this one. 28% of you said brand impersonation. We have 4% that said watering hole attack, 3% that said disinformation attack, and 0% that said SQL injection. Well, in this case, the majority of you said phishing. But you'll notice here in this question, the user wasn't asked for any information. They really didn't have anyone prompting them to provide a username and password. There was no mention in the question about providing any type of links for adding credit card numbers. In fact, there was nothing in this question that said the user even did anything other than click the link. So the real question is somebody saying they are Microsoft, saying that come to our website and you will get an absolutely free desktop. Well, that would be someone who is impersonating Microsoft. They're pretending to be that well-known brand of Microsoft.com. There's someone who said, we've got a laptop sitting here right for you. It's free. All you have to do is click right here and get that particular one. Now, the idea behind this was absolutely that they wanted you to think they were Microsoft. And that's what really differentiates this particular set of answers, or that answer, from the other answers that were here. We're very quick to, oh, it's phishing, it's a watering hole attack, that's disinformation. And there is an aspect of phishing to it, and there is an aspect of disinformation to it, but that's not what kind of attack this was. The pure attack of this one was someone pretending to be Microsoft and pretending to give you this absolutely free desktop. That is very clearly brand impersonation, and what they are trying to do is infect your machine. They want you to be part of their botnet that they can now control and use you as part of a distributed denial of service attack without you even realizing. Or maybe they're just watching what you're typing in, and they're sending your usernames and passwords that you're typing in over to their centralized server. Brand impersonation is probably the best answer for this particular question because of the scenario that we're dealing with here of it being Microsoft domain. It looks like it came from Microsoft.com. It is a request for you to get a free Microsoft laptop. That's what really makes this brand impersonation. Now, what about these other answers, though? Why is it not one of these others? We had 28% of you that said brand impersonation. Why wasn't it phishing? Because nothing was really asked of you. Where's the part where they caught anything? You know, phishing is more than just somebody putting the hook in the water, which is what happened here. At some point, they have to be able to pull back some information. And in this question, there was no mention of any information being pulled back. We also have 4% that said watering hole attack. This would assume that everybody wanting a new laptop would visit this site. Not really sure how watering hole would really work here because this is just an email. Not everybody's hanging out your single email link, watching that single connection. So probably not watering hole attack. I can't find a scenario where watering hole would work. Well, the watering hole attack means that you go to a separate location where everyone else is, and because you're all in this one place, you're infecting everybody who visits. You're effectively poisoning the water. So everybody has to get to the water. In this case, you didn't go to any water. You just hung out in your email inbox where nobody else is. It's really just you. We also have a disinformation attack. This really focuses more on providing you with an ongoing strategy of false information. This is not an ongoing strategy of false information. This is just somebody telling you, hey, you want a free laptop? Hey, click this link, get a free laptop. Click it, click it, click. There's really not much information here, quite honestly. There's just the one thing. There's not a lot of detail there. Disinformation attacks are really more of a longer term, broadly focused, multiple media input of wrong information, not the scenario that we have here. And fortunately, thankfully, since we've already spoken about SQL injections and how they work, nobody fell for that one. 0% of you. Which, by the way, is a very nice technique to use for an exam. Very often on your exam, questions later in the exam will reference information that was already mentioned in a previous question, and that can really help you in the exam process. And I think it helped you with this exam process as well. Can't beat that, right? Nice to have that capability. So that was the answer we were looking for, brand impersonation. Although only 28% of you got that one, I think you'd probably do better if we asked the question again at this point. But now you know what those differences are, and if it comes up on your exam, you'll know how to differentiate between all of them. Let's do another question. How are we on time? We're great on time. So let's do another question. This one about a topic dealing with application containerization. And this question asks, which of the following would be a common characteristic of application containerization? Would that be all containers use the same operating system? Containers are managed through the corporate MDM. Each container has a different version of the same application. Containers do not require full disk encryption. Or each guest operating system includes all operating system files. Oof, there's a lot here to parse through. Hopefully you are familiar with application containerization. You can pick that one out very quickly. This is a new topic on the 701 exam, so this is one we really need to know. Which of the following would be a common characteristic of application containerization? All containers use the same operating system. Containers are managed through the corporate MDM. Each container is a different version of the same application. Containers do not require full disk encryption, or each guest operating system includes all operating system files. Let's see how you do with this one. There's a lot we need to know about these technologies and how these applications are deployed. This question really does speak to this. And there are many different ways to deploy an app. Simply ask an application developer. They'll give you 20 different ways you could build out the architecture and deployment of a specific app. So let's see how you do with this one. This is one where we have to understand. If you've never worked with containers, this is a good example of how maybe loading up a containerization app might actually help you. That would be a good lab where you can break this down and sort of understand what the differences are. Hopefully you're already familiar with some of those. If you think you know the answer, lock your answer in. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room, as they will get deleted anyway. So that's what we're trying to get to, is the answer for this one. Let's see how you did on this question. The question asks, which of the following would be a common characteristic of application containerization? Is that all containers use the same operating system? Containers are managed through the corporate MDM. Each container is a different version of the same application. Containers do not require full disk encryption, or each guest operating system includes all operating system files. Let's see how you answered this one. We'll close the poll, and we can see that, we're all over the place again. We're a little torn on this one. 34% of us say all containers use the same operating system. Not a majority, but certainly the plurality of you, because the next one down is 13 or so percentages back that say containers are managed through the corporate MDM. That was 21% of you. Oh, we did have 24% of you that said each container has a different version of the same application. 10% of you say containers do not require full disk encryption, and 10% of you also said each guest operating system includes all operating system files. Well, you can see here in this question, there were two of these that really were fighting with each other. I didn't necessarily want to do that, but I put it in anyway, and hopefully I was able to hide it a little bit, because all containers using the same operating system and each guest operating system, including all operating system files, those are really different technologies. I tried to mix the technologies of containerization and virtualization, and hopefully you were able to see that pop out on the screen. So the real question is, what are we talking about? What in the world is containerization? Well, it's a different way. You know, with virtualization, you would install an entire operating system and application in one virtual machine, which is very, very useful for someone who is needing that level of additional application and operating system support. And on one machine with virtualization enabled, you could have different operating systems, all with their own self-contained infrastructure. Now, self-contained infrastructure gives you some advantages. However, what if you didn't need a self-contained infrastructure? What if you just wanted to run the same operating system for all of the apps? Why would we have to load the same operating system on these separate VMs? What if we could load one operating system and really virtualize, in this particular world, we call it containerizing the different applications that we're using? And this is how we would use it. So we might have an infrastructure. This would be the computing device that we have. It's your desktop computer, your server, whatever you're using to run this on. You would run a host operating system on top of that. So far, this sounds like my desktop computer at home. So it's running Windows, it's running Linux, it's running some OS, it's running Mac OS, could be running any operating system. On top of that, we would run some containerization software. One of the most popular in the world is software called Docker. That's why I put it into this diagram. And then, because we already have an operating system and we have something that can help us containerize these apps by using Docker, now I can have relatively small app containers that I can now run right on top of that. I don't have to load a completely separate operating system for every single one of these. Now you can start to see there's some great advantages there. Now I can really focus on a single operating system. Let's say that we're running this on Windows. This host operating system is Windows. Let's say Windows comes out with their monthly update. Instead of you having to update every app that's running in this operating system, you simply update the operating system down here in one place and you're done. So there's some advantages there to running that. Obviously, this does have some disadvantages associated with it, because this is all, although it is self-contained and none of these devices can talk to each other, there's also only one operating system. So these really have to be built to run on the operating system that we happen to be using. Usually you'd be running this Linux-based app, a Windows-based app. There would be some hook there that would be specific for the operating system underneath. So it's very difficult, almost impossible, to run apps on top of this containerization software that would be designed for different operating systems. In this case, there's a single operating system. All of those containers are using the same operating system. That was the first one here at the top. 34% of you chose that. So you did great with this one. That is exactly the answer we were looking for, because there's a single OS that you have to deal with. And all of the containers use that same operating system. Now, we mentioned down here at the bottom that this is sort of the reverse of that, but in reality, I'm describing a virtual machine where each guest operating system, and a guest operating system is that OS you would run in a VM, it includes all operating system files. It sure does, because that's exactly how a VM works. So in this case, we were talking about containerization and not virtualization. So that would not apply. Indeed, containers using the same OS is what we were looking for. These containers are not managed through the corporate MDM. I guess they could be managed that way if the MDM was one that supported more than just mobile devices. These could be mobile operating systems, I guess, in the world of containerization, but that is not a common characteristic of application containerization. So not the answer we were looking for. Each container having a different version of the same application. I mean, I guess you could. I'm not sure that's what you would do here. Do you imagine all of these? This is running application X version 1, application X version 1.1, application X version 1.2, application. Boy, imagine if all you could do is run the same app on all of them. Fortunately, these can be very different applications. This could be a web server. This could be a database server. This could be a graphics conversion server. This could be a file server. That you get the idea. These could be very different applications. The only thing that's like amongst all of them is they are designed to run on a single operating system. They all share the same operating system that's there. So it would not have a container with a different version of the same app, although you could. That's not a common characteristic of application containerization. And containers do not require full disk encryption. The virtualization, application containerization, or even just running an OS has nothing to do with whether we are or are not using full disk encryption. So that should be one you could have thrown out immediately. That's not what we were talking about. We were talking about one of these others, and the only other one that really does fit is the one at the top, that all containers use the same operating system. If you wanted to compare and contrast, let's put next to each other virtualized applications and containerized applications. You can see with a virtualized application, we're taking that operating system and you're moving it up higher in the stack. So you'd have your infrastructure of the device. On top of that, you would run a hypervisor, and then each one of these has its own operating system. Although that obviously takes a little bit more resources. You've now got multiple operating systems running simultaneously on this device. These applications could be for very different operating systems. So App A could run in Linux, App B could run in Windows, and App C could run in Mac OS. Something you can't do in a containerized environment. So that's your difference between those two, at least at a very high level. That's the difference between those two. There's obviously a lot more differences between those. And when you get into using them, you will see that the differences are indeed quite different between all of them. But the answer to this one, the one we were looking for, all containers use the same operating system. We're sort of at the top of the hour. I think I want to slide in one more main question here, and then we'll jump over to, I think we got a couple more we could probably work through it. This question asks, a security engineer received an alert showing a change to the corporate web server configuration file. Which of the following would be the most likely source of this alert? Would it be FIM, IPS, NGFW, IPsec VPN, or NAC? I told you there would be abbreviations. The question again asks, a security engineer received an alert showing a change to the corporate web server configuration file. Which of the following would be the most likely source of this alert? Is it a FIM, IPS, NGFW, IPsec VPN, or NAC? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See what you... This is a really good example, by the way, of knowing the abbreviations, but more than that, knowing what they do, knowing how to use them. How is this technology deployed? When would you use this technology? And that's why I often tell you when you're working through these that knowing the abbreviation may not be enough. It might help you with this question, but it may not be enough. You may have to go through and really understand the differences. See if you, in fact, all of these abbreviations, just so you are aware, all of these abbreviations come from the official CompTIA exam objectives. So if you think you really know the answer to this one, make sure you go through the other answers and see if you know what those are referring to and see what their differences are. This is almost like having 5 different questions in the same question because each one of these is an important security control, or can be. So how would we use these? And when would we use these? If you can answer that question, you're doing pretty well for this particular exam. See if you know this one, though. This should be a pretty good one for you to figure this out. If you've ever worked in corporate security, IT security, or really been maybe even an administrator of a corporate web server, maybe this is something that's familiar to you. And it's important security control, especially because it is on the official exam objectives. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a security engineer received an alert showing a change to the corporate web server configuration file. Which of the following would be the most likely source of this alert? Would it be FIM, IPS, NGFW, IPsec VPN, or NAC? Let's see what you think the answer is. We'll stop our poll. And how do we do? Well, 43% of you say the answer is FIM. 26% of you, more than a quarter, say the answer is IPS. 14% say the answer is NGFW. 12% say the answer is NAC. And only 5% say the answer is IPsec VPN. So 4 of these answers turned out to be double digits for this one. So that's somewhat telling for this. We're really trying to parse these out and figure out how we would receive an alert for something like this. Now, we did not have a majority on this one, but the plurality of you said the answer is FIM. Well, for those of you familiar with the exam objectives, you know that FIM is your file integrity monitoring. This is a very common security control. It's probably one of the simplest type of security controls you could run into. Because when you install an application, an operating system, or really any software on your computer, a lot of that information that you're installing never changes. Maybe if there's finally a patch for the app, things might change, but during the normal course of operation on a day-to-day basis, most of that application is completely static. Nothing changes about it. So this is a very useful tool to be able to monitor it, because a FIM, a file integrity monitoring tool, will monitor all of these files that are not supposed to change, which might be configuration files, it might be application files, it might be other types that we have here. So have the system automatically monitor them. And if somehow one of them happens to change, one of them becomes very, very different than where it was just a moment ago, because they monitor these things on a second-by-second basis, that becomes really, really useful. You might have even used a FIM before, although it's one that's more of an on-demand version of a FIM. If you get to Windows and you've run SFC on your Windows device, UA Plus people know what I'm talking about. Your system file checker does this. It goes through the process of looking through your operating system files, and if something has changed one of them, it will fix it. That's a pretty useful file integrity monitoring, although it's on demand. It requires you to run that. A good file integrity monitoring application is going to constantly monitor and let you know proactively when that type of thing occurs. Linux folks are probably familiar with Tripwire. That's a very common File integrity monitoring, probably one of the most popular on the Linux side. I've used that for years and years and years and years. There's some capabilities there. If you're running a host-based IPS, some host-based IPSs have some level of file integrity monitoring, but it's not something that is usually part of the IPS function. It's usually a FIM that's added onto the host-based IPS. So you really can't call that IPS functionality. It really is multiple layers of security bundled together into one single app from that perspective. And of course, if you ever, we can go back to this one. If you're ever looking and trying to figure out, is this something I can use? Just look at the applications you're using on your system and see if the application changing might be detrimental. And obviously, if you have hundreds or thousands of servers, this can really be very helpful. It can pinpoint the second that an attacker makes a change to a configuration file, and then it lets you know about it. Incredibly useful. File integrity monitoring should be part of everyone's infrastructure, and indeed 43% of you chose that option. That is the right option. You got it absolutely correct. An intrusion prevention system is designed to look for known vulnerabilities that are coming through the network to try to attack systems. They are not generally, almost never, going to provide you with a way to show a change to a server configuration file, unless that IPS is a host-based IPS and has FIM functionality built into it. At that point, we're not talking about the IPS, we're talking about the FIM. And we have NGFW, that's our next generation firewall. Next generation firewalls don't look at files that are on servers. That's not part of the function of the firewall. It's doing enough just to keep up with network traffic and look through all of the security rules and do the content filtering and look for viruses and do the cloud-based application identification and be able to... There's no way that it could also monitor all of your individual servers. That's not what you would buy an NGFW for anyway. A NAC, network access control, becomes very useful for configuring and setting up different capabilities within a login process. Someone logs in, and then we're able to modify how they are connecting to the network and the rights and permissions they have based on the machine that they're using and who they are. So imagine someone logging in and automatically being connected to a VLAN that is appropriate for them. What if during the login process, we're able to check the machine that they're on and confirm that that device is a corporately owned device and we can trust it? All of that those are functionalities that are very commonly associated with a network access control. And then only 5% chose IPsec VPN. That's obviously a way to connect devices together using an encrypted tunnel to secure that data, automatically encrypt all the data we put across that tunnel. Has nothing to do with getting an alert about a change to a configuration file. And most of you knew that. Only 5% of you chose that one. The answer here, the one we were waiting for, was a FIM. That is your file integrity monitoring. That's what we were looking for. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that certifies that you were here for a 1-hour webinar category CEU. The way that you would earn that CEU is to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put January 2025 Security Plus. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, FIM, IPS, NAC. Those are your super secret code words of the month. I usually turn these around in about a week, so you'll receive an email back from me certifying that you were here for this 1 hour of a webinar category. That's the CEU that I'm going to send to you. That's a continuing education unit credit. That's something used for folks that already have their Security Plus or they're looking to renew a certification. If you don't have any certifications yet, none of that matters. You can ignore everything I just said because you can't collect a CEU until you are certified. Sort of the way that time works in the world of CompTIA. So that's what we would do. Again, what you would do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, put January 2025 Security Plus, and in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, FIM, IPS, NAC. I did it right the second time, right? I have to remember, what did I say the first time through? That's what I said. FIM, IPS, NAC. That is the right one. So we're good. That's what you should send to me. Again, it takes me a number of days to get this back to you. Don't worry. Don't think I'm not going to do it. Anything I receive that matches all of that will certainly receive a response, but you have to follow those instructions. If you do not follow those instructions, you will not receive an email from me, and that would just make me sad. So don't do that either. That is what you can focus on for getting those particular answers. Hopefully, that's given you some perspective on things that would be important to know. We can fit another question in, though, can't we? Let's do one more before we're done today. This next question is not going to be one that I wrote specifically for this live stream. Everything we've done so far has been a brand new question that I wrote just for this live stream. But one of the things you'll notice is that on our website, we're very focused on a particular formula. We call this the Professor Messer WRAP formula, W-R-A-P. The W means we want you to watch our videos or some other type of training video system. We think ours are good. You should watch ours. The R is read a good book. Good books are able to provide you with information in a different way than the videos. We find those are very useful. The A is to apply what you have learned with some hands-on labs. Be able to do some tests. We even went through the process of talking today of different things you might want to do to help you learn a few more of these topics and techniques. And the last one, the P, is practice. We think being able to go through a set of well-written practice questions can help prepare you for the actual exam. The problem is there's not a lot of great well-written practice questions out on the internet. And even the ones that I have found often aren't associated or ask questions which aren't associated with the latest version of the exam, which is the SY0-701. So I thought, what if we wrote our own that focused on having the same style as the exam, the same tone, the same structure in the questions, but were original questions. So you could really practice yourself without having to worry that perhaps you're not focusing on the candidate agreement that CompTIA provides. So this practice exams book we wrote, 381 pages. It's a big book. It's a thick book full of questions. There's 3 separate question banks in here of 90 questions each in each question bank. Not only do we have multiple choice questions, we have performance-based questions as well. And I would like to give you one of these questions right now. Again, please, no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. Let's go through a question directly from the practice exams book. This question is one that goes through the process of asking, this is question A48 on page 17 on this book, and it asks, a company has decided to perform a disaster recovery exercise during an annual meeting with the IT directors and senior directors. A simulated disaster will be presented, and the participants will discuss the logistics and processes required to resolve the disaster. Which of the following would best describe this exercise? Is it capacity planning, business impact analysis, continuity of operations, or tabletop exercise? Which would it be? Now, the nice thing about this is that it is a PDF. So if you want to go to this PDF, I can go through and turn on some of the annotation functions. I could start drawing on the screen. If you had this on a tablet with a stylus, you could write on it. We don't restrict your access to this PDF. So you're able to use it as if it is an actual book. So you could change what you have here. You could select different answers if you think you know what the answer is. And of course, in this particular case, we want to know what the answer is. Now, notice in this particular question that there's a couple of links right next to it. One is a quick answer link. If you just want to know, is it A, B, C, or D? You go to that link, and it's a page that just has a bunch of A, B, C's, or D's on it. But you may want to get more detail about this particular question, but the details are on page 86. Page 86 is a long way to go for this one because we're on page 17. Well, I don't want you to have to scroll through this PDF and then scroll back just to be able to do it. So you'll notice when I mouse over the details, it turns into a little link, a hand. And if I click on that, you'll get to see them right here. You can see that those are available. And now it shows me the same question with the same answers, but it says the answer is D, tabletop exercise. And I explained to you in that particular answer why that is the right answer. Now, a lot of the practice exams you run into will show a similar thing. My problem is that I never seem to answer the right answer. And then I'll go to the answer page and it doesn't tell me why the wrong answers are wrong, which I feel like is an opportunity that's lost. If we really want to finish up the learning process, then tell me why I was wrong so that I can get it right next time. one of the things I do in my book is every wrong answer is explained as to why that is the incorrect answer for that question. So if you're ever in the process of trying to learn more about these topics, this can help you learn more about how these might be applied, especially in that particular question. Another part about this, and I'll recommend this for people that already have the book, don't just skip past the wrong answers if you get the question right. Maybe you answered D, tabletop exercise. Yep, I knew it. Tabletop exercise. Next question. You're missing an opportunity there as well, because maybe you don't know the details of how capacity planning, a business impact analysis, or continuity of operations would fit into this answer. And by reading through these, you're learning more about those topics too. Because on your actual exam, you might not get a question about tabletop exercises, but you might get a question about continuity of operations. So this is almost like having 4 different questions in the same question, if you want to look at it that way. Okay, 3.5, 3 questions. We can figure out the balance there of all of those. Now, if you've read through the question, you think, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know what any of those are that's here. One of the things that you could do is go right to the bottom of these answers where I tell you this is the video that I pulled information from to build this question. Because all of my videos cover every topic from the exam objectives, makes it very easy to slide that in. That way you can watch the video, come back to the question, and now it should make a lot more sense for you. Well, now that we're done, we can click our back button. You have a back button in your browser. You probably have a back button in your PDF reader as well. Click the back button where we started, and we can go to the next question that's on our list. Those are my practice exams. That's something that you can get not only in the PDF version, the digital edition. Again, I have a physical edition as well. And if you purchase the physical edition, you get access to the digital edition for free immediately. You can download it right away from your member account on the Professor Messer website. You want to learn more about this? Go to professormesser.com/securitype. One of the things I mentioned earlier was that all of the topics that were in that question, really all of the questions that we did today, all came from topics that you will find on the official exam objectives. This is a very, very useful document because it provides you with everything you need to know to pass this exam. Here's a copy of the objectives I have on my screen just to give you a feel for this. Here's section 1.2, summarize fundamental security concepts. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability is CIA. Non-repudiation, what's that? Authentication, authorization, and accounting, or AAA. We need to know that. And specifically, we need to understand authenticating people, authenticating systems, and authorization models. We have gap analysis, zero trust, physical security, deception and disruption technologies, and of course, there are bullets and sub-bullets on each one of those as well. You need to be able to explain to someone what these things mean, either to yourself or someone else, I guess. Explain what those things mean. And if you're ever in a case where you're wondering, is that topic on the exam? Is this topic on the exam? Do I need to know this? This is a fantastic document to provide you with those details because it tells you everything you need to know. CompTIA also stays very, very, very close to this list. They almost never deviate from this list. And because of that, one of the things I often tell people is if you know every single one of these bullets, you're going to pass your exam. How could you not? You know everything they could possibly be asking you. So use this as a checklist. This should be the checklist you start with your studies. This is also a great checklist when you are done with your studies to know if you are really ready to take the exam. And by the way, it's free. Did I mention that? Zero cost, nothing, no money out of your pocket. You simply go to professormesser.com/objectives, and there's a link over to the CompTIA website, or go to your favorite search engine and look for CompTIA exam objectives. It'll take you right there on the first link to the page that you need to be on. That is where you can really know if a particular topic is something that you should know or something you don't need to worry about for the actual SY0-701 exam. So have a look at that and see if that makes any sense. I think being free also helps quite a bit too. At least it does for me. We have more study groups coming next month. We do one of these Security Plus study groups every month. I do 2A Plus, a Network Plus, and a Security Plus live stream every month, always with new questions. We've already set the time for the one next month. It's on February the 19th. We're doing A+ on the 4th and the 6th. We're doing Network Plus on the 12th, and we're doing Security Plus on the 19th. All of these, of course, are on my website at professormesser.com/calendar. And of course, I've got them on my Discord events channel as well. If these dates change, sometimes they do. I apologize in advance. Sometimes we have to move things around. I will always update that link for the calendar first thing. So the calendar and the events channel in Discord are always updated the moment I make a change. That way you'll know when the next event really is going to be at any particular time. And you might be watching this video on a replay months from now. February 19th is way behind us. You can always go to the calendar to find out when the next live event is going to be. We'd love for you to join us on those live events. Well, we're not done here. We got another hour. I'm going to answer questions from you in the next hour. So stick around for that. We call it our after show. We'd love for you to join us for that one as well. Don't forget that we've got weekly pop quiz questions available on Twitter, on Instagram, and of course, our entire YouTube channel has training video after training video after training video for Security Plus. You might want to check that out. And if you liked this video, give it a like, maybe even subscribe to our channel. There's a lot happening there over this next year. 2025 is going to be a busy time. We also, of course, have discounted vouchers if you're in Canada or the US or US territory. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers. And don't forget about our course notes, our practice exams, and much more. You can find it all at professormesser.com/701SB for our security course notes bundles. Find them all there. Well, thank you for joining us in this first hour. We've got a lot more to go through. Stick around for the after show. Thank you so much for joining us in this first hour. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Okay, let me fix my screens and come back to you. There, nope, that's the wrong grab. We'll put this here. There we go. Hi, everybody. It's the after show. Now, let me take a sip really quick because the voice will go quick if I don't. Okay. This is the part of the study group that I don't prepare for. I do very little preparation because I don't know what you're going to ask. This is the part where I don't have to do very much other than go through and answer the questions that you have. And sometimes we'll get some pretty interesting questions, and I have no doubt that we're probably going to have this here as well. To be able to do that, I need to click a few things on my side, and I will remind you that you can submit questions for this live stream, this after show, at any time. I'm going to be moderating the questions on my side, so I'll be flipping through them. So you won't see it pop up on your screen immediately, but don't worry, if you submit them, I will see them back here. So I'll be able to go through them myself. So if you have a question for me about technology, career, interesting things in the news, or anything else, really, I'll answer almost anything you want to ask. You can always put them into that list. You'll find it at the same link we were using to answer questions, professormesser.com/QA. Now we're still using that link to ask questions. It's that tab at the top that you can use to submit any questions that you would like into the mix of this. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to sift through the questions that you have submitted. Wow, a lot of questions sitting in here already to be able to work through. So that's a really good example of submitting them, having them ready to go first thing. And I think I would like to even go through a couple of these. One of these is a good place to start for those of you that have started 2025 off and you're wondering, maybe this is something you would like to do, but maybe you're thinking, well, I'm in high school, I haven't gotten to college yet, or maybe I'm in college, but I'm not 21. Can I still take these certification exams? And thankfully, this is from Joe. Joe asks, how old do you have to be to take the test? There is no age requirement for the exam. None at all. There is a requirement that you have some type of legal representative, your adult, your family member, your guardian, someone who can sign off on taking the exam, because there's an exam candidate agreement and other things that have to be provided. And usually that's a simple process. Somebody says, yes, you can take the exam. And so you don't have to be any particular age. You don't have to have any particular special sign off from CompTIA if you happen to be less than a particular age. Not a problem. we will allow you to take this exam at whatever age you would like, which I think is kind of nice. You don't have to worry that you're going to be prevented from taking this exam, or maybe you can't. Maybe they say you can't even get certified until you're a certain age. Fortunately, that's not the case. You can take this exam at any age, at any time, and you would earn your A+ Network Plus, Security Plus, or any of the CompTIA exams. Now, I'm sure that's probably not exactly the same thing for every certification body that you would find. Cisco might do it differently. Microsoft might do it differently. Red Hat might do it differently, or it might be the same. I don't know. I haven't looked at those to know what the differences are from an age requirement. But as far as CompTIA exams are concerned, no age requirement at all. Go for it. Nothing holding you back. Let's keep going through the list that you have. We've got others here that we could sort of step through. There are a few extra things. Let's talk about when you might be ready for an exam. At what point would you really have full knowledge that you're going in and passing this exam? Because this comes from S. Antonio asks, had my exam scheduled for the 25th, Saturday, but I had to postpone it to next month because I don't feel confident enough yet. I used Professor Master Practice Tests, scored a 74 and a 78. Those are good percentages. I'm trying to correct my mistakes to improve. However, the problem I'm facing is that I'm starting to forget and mix up the materials. Is this normal? All of this sounds perfectly normal. In fact, you will probably find, and I think we all deal with this to some degree. In my career, I've probably taken 25 different industry certification exams. That's quite a few. And you never go into the exam with 100% confidence that you are ready to take this exam. It just never happens because too much is unknown. You don't know what this exam is going to throw at you until you take it. And only then do you know. Now, it could be that you've looked at some of these percentages. You got a 74 and a 78. That's kind of on the lower range of what I feel is comfortable enough for these exams. But maybe we use some other techniques. If you've only been watching videos, maybe you need a good book. If you only have a book, maybe you should do some more hands-on. So there's other things that we can do to help improve our knowledge of these topics. And if you're starting to mix things up with these topics, you might want to do a little more hands-on. Maybe that's going to help bring things together. Now, I realize on the Security Plus exam, there are no command line commands we need to know. We don't have to sit at a command prompt and run different utilities. There's no in-map requirements. We don't have to run a trace route. We don't have to try authentication or go through this detailed searching of information. That's not part of Security Plus, at least not anymore. 701 got rid of a lot of those. But if you are able to perform different tasks like that, you get more of a familiarity with how that works. And when you get more familiarity, you can start parsing out what type of technology does what. And I think that helps a lot when you start to mix up different topics on this exam, because there are many topics on this exam, many and varied topics on this exam, a lot that you have to worry about. So don't worry so much about focusing on the percentage, but maybe this is the point where you go through the exam objectives. So that's what I'm going to bring up on my screen. Let's go back to these objectives. This is what I would do if I were you. I sort of started this process here. We got the very top where it says section 1.1, compare and contrast various types of security controls. So the categories are technical, managerial, operational, and physical. Now you can see I started marking them. The ones that I really knew I could mark in green and say, nope, I've got these down. I can explain to someone what a technical security control is, what a managerial security control is. So if you can parse those out, you can put those in green, mark them through, or just say, check mark, I know that one. Then the control types, maybe you know preventive, maybe you know deterrent, but maybe, I don't remember compensating that well. What does compensating do it? Let me write that one in. Let me circle it. Let me mark it in yellow because I'm not completely sure about it. Or you might go through this list and think, let's change my annotation here to be a different color. We'll change it to be this color. You might be looking at this and thinking, non-repudiation. I don't remember anything about non-repudiation. We'll mark that one in that darker red color or that pink color so that we know we should really spend time on that one. Or maybe you use a numbering scheme. Maybe you're out of 10, maybe that one's a 7, or it's a 4, or it's a 1. And then you can mark different categories or different topics in here with that same numbering scheme. And when you're done going through the entire list, are any of these a 1? Let's learn those immediately. Are any of these a 2? Now we'll learn those second. So we'll start with the ones we know nothing about, and we'll at least learn a little more about those topics. So you may be able to focus in on individual topics that you seem to be missing or struggling with and highlight them a little bit more. That might give you a little more insight into where you should focus your efforts. And if you're pushing back the exam, which, by the way, great idea. If you don't feel ready to take the exam, you can change the date. You can push that date out. You can reschedule. You just need, I think, 24 hours of time before the exam to reschedule online and push it out to a different date. Let me give you also a little tip for people that are planning to do that. One of the biggest pieces of feedback I seem to be getting, and I don't know why this is, maybe when you go through this process, you can tell me, is that a lot of people that change the date for their exam, they push it off to be later, they find out after the fact the change didn't take, that the rescheduling for whatever reason did not complete. And I don't know if that's something that is related to the user interface that's used online. I don't know if there's a problem with the backend process that they're using for this. I don't know if people are getting different messages in their email about this not working or working. I'm not sure what's causing this weirdness that I am hearing, but it's more than one instance of this that I've run into. So I'll just tell you that if you change the date of your exam, log out, immediately log back in and see if it's really changed. That's the tip I'm going to give you. Most cases when that happens to people, they will allow them. They've effectively missed their exam, and technically they've lost the money that they've invested in that particular sitting. But fortunately, the folks at Pearson have tended to be really good about rescheduling, but they don't have to do that. So that's why I tell you, you need to be your own advocate for this one. You need to really do the double checks that if you change the dates for your exam, make sure you confirm. So you even mentioned in the question that you posed, S. Antonio says, I've changed this. I postponed it to next month. Just go ahead and log in and make sure it got postponed, okay? Because you got time before the 25th if something did not work right. So just a little heads up on that one. That might be able to help you. And hopefully that's giving you some tips on things you can work on to improve, learn a little bit more about these topics, try different training. If you've been using one book, maybe it's time to try a different book. That's a relatively small investment in this exam, and it might give you some tips and tricks of ideas about topics you just didn't know about or didn't have available to you. Try a different video training course. Try some different Q&A. You know, there's all kinds of different resources out there. Find the ones that work for you. I think we have very good training materials, but some people would like to try something different. Please do that if that's going to help you pass this exam. That's your goal, is to use whatever fits best with your style of learning, and everyone has a different style of learning. So I recognize that. So find the style that works for you and go with that one. Hopefully I can give you a couple things to try for your studies, and you'll be ready next month when that comes along. Of course, you can push it out again if you need to. You can have multiple changes to this. You can just keep changing it. Obviously, you have to take the exam before the expiration date of the voucher that you use to pay for it. Most vouchers are good for a year, but that may not be the case. You may have a voucher that expires a little bit earlier. You have to keep that in mind because you have to get that exam done by the voucher expiration date. A lot of people don't realize that. It's in one of those terms and conditions that are listed in the voucher itself. Let's do another question. Let's keep going through this list. All right, in this question, so let's have another breakdown of this. This is more about the things we were looking at earlier. I mentioned to you that we have course notes, we have practice exams. For example, when we have physical versions of these books available, if you want to get the practice exams, that's a big book. There's a lot there. The question from one of my favorite people, Anonymous, who says, if we get the physical book, you mentioned we also get the digital version, but is the digital version only the book or everything in the world? Course notes, exam notes, other books. Nope, it's just this book. You're just getting one book. So that's where that comes from. So make sure that you have a look. If you're buying the physical edition of the practice exams book, you also get the digital edition of the practice exams book. As much as I wish I could give you the digital edition of every possible thing in the world, there is that challenge of making things work right. However, if you buy both of these at the same time, there is the course notes and the practice exams. There's a little bit of a cost break. So we do give you a discount if you buy them both at the same time. But that is the challenge. If you buy the physical edition of the course notes, you get the digital edition of the course notes. If you buy both the practice exams and the course notes and the physical edition, you also get both digital editions of these. So it's specific to the physical product that you're purchasing. Hopefully that clarifies that a bit. I'm sorry I was not more clear about that when I was mentioning it, but that at least gives you more detail, locks that one in for you. Now you know that's the way that one works, and having the breakdown of that. Here's a question from the chat room, since we were talking about the 701 exam and booking an exam and changing the exam dates and the vouchers that we use. The question in the chat room from Zach says, if I book an exam using a voucher for the 701 this calendar year and a new exam comes out, am I still taking the 701 or would it be an up-to-date version? So there's a couple of clarifications to make with the proposed scenario there. The first is that when you purchase a Security Plus voucher, you're ready to take your Security Plus exam and you purchase the voucher is for Security Plus. It is not a SY0-701 Security Plus, an SY0-601 Security Plus, an SY0-801 Security Plus. That becomes a thing. That is very different in this scenario from those two. So you don't have to worry too much that the voucher that you're buying is not going to be good for Security Plus, because if you get a Security Plus voucher, it's always good for whatever Security Plus exam happens to be available when you're ready to take your exam. Now, the question you had about what if a new exam comes out this year? Well, it won't, thankfully, because the estimated retirement for the current version of the exam, the 701, is May 2027. So you don't even have to, this is a worry and a concern that you will not have to worry about until 2027. No, that's the real challenge here, is knowing these dates and times. That's why I make sure I tell you about those dates and times. They're on my website. I've got a breakdown of the differences between them. You know about all of this. We won't even know what's on the new exam until the beginning of 2027 or somewhere in there. So this is not even a concern for me at this point. I have no idea what the next dates are going to be for this exam in detail. We'll know more as we get closer, but we're years away from having to worry about that. So fortunately, Zach, not a worry. And even if there was a situation where you bought the voucher and suddenly a new version of the exam was introduced, the older version, the current version still remains in place. Traditionally, they've kept it in place for 6 months. So let's say today, CompTIA, they've not even announced anything. Suddenly out of the blue, they say, I know we were thinking of 2027. We got a new version right now. It's the 801. It's like a surprise to everyone. That's not happening, by the way. It's not even, they never do this. But let's say they did. You would still have the current version of the exam available for 6 more months. So they don't want to have people suddenly have to stop what they're doing and shift gears and buy new study materials. They give you a long ramp where you can continue your studies, earn your certification, and now you're Security Plus certified. And that's one great thing. It doesn't matter which block of questions you get certified in, you're Security Plus certified regardless. So that part's really nice. You don't have to worry about dates. You don't have to worry about things suddenly changing. And you don't have to worry about anything relating to your studies when it comes to new versions, updates. All you have to worry about is the one you're working on now, and make sure you're able to do it before that retirement date in 2027. As we sit here in 2025, you got plenty of time. No worries there. So make sure you have a look and sift through the details of that. Put it on your calendar. Know when it is, but I don't think that's a problem for you. I think you're in good shape. Let's keep going through this list. We've got others here. A lot of questions coming in. Thank you for this. We've got other pieces to go through. A lot of good questions coming in too. You can always add your question to the list by going to the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA, and you could submit your question at any time. I mentioned earlier, somebody was asking a question about, what about these CEUs? What was that? Well, I can absolutely send you the email. If you were listening in near the end of sometime in that first hour, I explained to you how you could earn a webinar category CEU. So if you didn't catch that, you can go back and do a rewatch. Somewhere in that first hour, I will mention it. I do mention it, and I give you some specific instructions on how you can earn that email from me. Let's keep going through this list. We did a performance-based question at the beginning of this study group. It was this one happened to be a matching question, but you could, of course, fill in the blank, drag and drop. There could be a lot of different kinds of questions for you. But the question that has come up, and this does come up a lot, is do you get partial credit for these? Because we had, for example, in this question, there were 4 things that we needed to match, but there were 7 options to match it with. So the question that Jay poses, do we get partial credit for performance-based questions? Because you could score it. If you got 3 out of 4, maybe you get 75% of the total points. Maybe you got half of them right. That type of thing, maybe you get partial credit. One of the things that CompTIA has done traditionally is never tell us how the exams are graded. And that continues even today. We have no idea how the exams are graded. No clue. They will not tell us, nor I think will they ever tell us how the exams are graded. But occasionally they publish something that gives us a little bit of an insight into how it works. The only thing I can really tell you about performance-based questions comes from their website, where they have written a performance-based question, frequently asked questions, from the Department of Redundancy department. We'll scroll down here in this list. There's a lot of good questions in here, and you should read through it. It's got good stuff here. But the very last question they ask is partial credit given if I answer part of a PBQ correctly? And they've finally given us full and complete knowledge of what they do. They say there may be questions for which partial credit is offered. However, exam questions and their scoring are confidential, so no further information can be provided regarding which questions may offer partial credit. So they have now clearly told us that definitively the answer is maybe. We know 100% of the time that this might happen, or it might not, always, if we don't know. But they've at least given us some insight that probably they could throw some partial credits in from time to time. Would it kill you, CompTIA, to just tell us? But they don't. They just say, maybe we will, maybe we won't, but at least there's a chance. So I guess that's better than what we had. Before it was, we don't know. Now at least we sort of know that possibly we could be given partial credit. There you go. Hope that clears things up for you. I'm crystal clear on it now. Before I was wondering. Now, of course, certainly very clear about the details of it. Well, at least it's some insight into what they think. I like to think in my glass half full mind that if the exam question is one that lends itself towards partial credit, that you will get partial credit. I just, in my mind, want to believe it. Therefore, that's reality to me. Is it factual? Is there any basis in truth? No. There's no basis in truth. There's absolutely no way to tell. Not only do we not know if we are given partial credit, there's no way even to tell if we were given partial credit after the fact. We just have no clue as to whether that really is what happened. So my recommendation to you and to anybody worrying about how do they schedule these things, how do they figure out the grading, how many points are for this question, how many points for that question, my recommendation to you is don't worry about it. You are never going to know the answer to that one. They are never going to tell you. You will never be able to maybe look after the fact and try to reverse engineer it. Can't do it. They'll never, never, never tell you. So don't worry about that part of it. In reality, you have no control over it. You will get no knowledge about it. There's nothing you can do during the exam that might help you anyway. So my recommendation to you is don't worry about it. Focus instead on the exam objectives. Focus on knowing all of those topics. And whatever the final score is just what it is. You have no control over it anyway. So as interesting, I think us as technologists, as problem solvers, as we want to pull the cover off of all of this technology and look inside to see how it really works. This is one of those scenarios where they don't allow you to pull the cover off. And we're just going to have to deal with that at a personal level as much as it bothers us. So that I wish I knew. I would love to get in there and see what they do with that. But in many ways, even knowing wouldn't help you because during the exam, you don't know either. So there is that reality to it. That and by the way, that's not just CompTIA exams. That's every industry certification exam you'll ever have. Cisco exams, Microsoft exams, AWS exams, Red Hat exams. All of those tell you nothing about how they are graded. You will never know. You have to trust that organization that the final score you get has been calculated in a way that is complete and accurate. That's just the nature of that particular beast in our industry. And if you've never taken an industry certification exam, that might be kind of weird. Might be thinking, wait, on an actual exam in school, we get to at least go over the questions. We know what we got right. We know what we got wrong. Yeah, this isn't one of those. This is something different. So sorry about that. You just are never going to know. And it's just something going to have to work through. I know you can do it. And don't worry about it. It's not important anyway. The important thing is how you do on the exam and the final score. How they came up with it, at that point, we don't care. Let's do another question. How are we on time? We're good on time, right? We're doing okay on time. Let's do another question. This is a question we tend to get a lot of. And I think it's a good question for a lot of people. Again, from my good friend Anonymous, who asks, I passed my 1101 and scheduled my 1102 in a couple of weeks. 31 years old, looking to switch into tech after 7 years of banking. I can't help but feel I'm switching too late. So the question is, am I too late? Well, there's a couple of great things about technology. The first one is the computers have no idea how old you are, thankfully. Thank you, computers. I'm pretty happy about that one myself. So it doesn't matter when you get into this, when you find that you want to shift gears. And in fact, in my particular role, where I have this website and we're training people on how to get a job or a better job in IT, I hear these stories from people all the time. There are certainly a group of people like right out of college or in college that are working through their certifications. So they get their first job in IT right out of school, and that's where they're focusing. But there's also a very large group of people that are in a different field and they want to move into IT. It's a very attractive area of a career, IT, information technology. And I think I really saw an uptick in this during the COVID lockdowns is people were looking around saying, I can't work in entertainment. I can't work in catering. I can't work in food service. I can't work in transportation. I can't do any of these things. We're not doing any of it. I'm out of a job. I'm now having to focus on where can I get some financial support from the government? Where can I get financial support from a third party? Should I move in with someone I know? How do we save our money on this one? But they're looking over the IT folks and thinking, these guys are super busy. They're doing more work than I've ever seen because we were scrambling to get everybody set up remotely to manage these remote processes, to do the VPN connectivity. We need additional hardware. We need to configure additional software. The authentication information was not in place. The cloud-based networking that we'd set up needed to be enhanced. We were busy. There was a lot going on. IT people did not have downtime. We did not have a worry about, are we going to have a job? Because our job got super busy during that time frame. And a lot of people saw that and thought, these guys always have a job. And in fact, that's not 100% true, but there's a good truth to that one. It's pretty close to the truth that there's a lot to do there for technology, and that became very appealing for folks. So more than ever, I saw a move from different verticals, different parts of the workforce, whether you are in entertainment or transportation or medicine or law enforcement or whatever it happens to be, a lot of folks are moving over into IT as a second career, as a second part of their career. This is a challenge regardless of what you're moving into, because you're effectively leaving what you have been working on for 10 years or more, and you're moving into a completely different field. Now, in some cases, it's not completely different. I take the example that Anonymous has here of working 7 years in banking. You know what banking has a lot of, other than my money? Banking has a lot of IT. They've got a lot of, banking is nothing more than IT. Banking is just IT. That's what banking is. Banking doesn't make anything. They're not manufacturing anything. They're not producing anything. They're not creating anything. They're simply processing and moving around funds. So that's technology. That's what we're doing right now. And I've worked a lot with a lot of different financial organizations, a lot of different banks, some of the biggest banks in the world. I've done direct work. I've been in their data centers. I got locked in the Royal Bank of Scotland data center one time. I've told that story on a different study group. Someone literally broke through a wall to get us out. There's some great stories in these data centers, but these banks need technologists. They need smart technical people to manage systems, secure the systems, network the systems together, connect them to the cloud, and be able to connect and integrate all of those services together. So I always tell people, wherever you're moving from to get into IT, see if there's not an IT component of your existing company or existing market segment that you know about where you can fit in. Because from an IT perspective, I can tell you there's nothing we like more than to bring someone into IT who understands the business. That is one of our biggest challenges in IT, because we as technologists, we learn operating systems, we learn network configurations, we have worked so hard to make things secure. We know how the next generation firewall works. We know how to deploy it in a redundant configuration. We've assigned dynamic routing protocols for quick redundancy changes if we lose one of these devices. We've integrated it with content filtering. Wait, what do we do again as a company? Do we manufacture something? Maybe we write books. Maybe we make building supplies. Maybe we distribute something. So all of those technical things I just mentioned had no direct connection back to what we do as a company. My first perspective into this, one of the big first jobs I had out of college, the second job I got was working at an insurance company. And I was in their IT department. I was focusing on getting Windows up and running and helping people with problems they had with email and the things you do when you work at a help desk in an insurance company. But when I left there 5 years later, I thought to myself, what is it we actually did here? I had some idea. I mean, after a while, you figure out what's going on. And while I was there, the company branched out of more of a life insurance role and got into a lot more health insurance. So when I left, I did have a better idea of the products, the financial products we had as an insurance company, but I certainly didn't know all of them. But that speaks a lot to how important it is that people within IT have some type of knowledge to what you do as an organization. What is the goals of your company? Are you a profit organization? Are you a government organization? Are there particular goals and processes and tasks that you want to be sure you're able to help the organization move towards? Unless you really understand what's going on out there in the rest of the company, you really have a myopic, a very narrow view of what this technology is doing for the organization. So if you can bring someone in who knows all about the company, they're going to be a very good technologist. So I tell people all the time, if you've worked in healthcare, get in working with the IT department of a hospital. If you have worked in manufacturing, see if you can find an IT organization within a manufacturing company, either the one you work for or a different one, because you have an industry knowledge of what that is that you can bring into the IT department, which I assure you is very, very, very valuable. Very valuable. We strive for that. We hope for that. We try to find ways to get that information into IT. Bringing people in is a great way to do it. So that's what I would mention to them, is to figure that piece out. I think if you are someone who is working through a transition from one type of business like banking into the world of IT, I really think you should focus on that. And trust me, banks have just enormous IT departments. You should be able to do well with that. But it doesn't have to be that way, of course. You could move from banking into any type of industry. Another thing that I think is important for those of you that are moving from one industry to another, and I think this really applies across the board, but I think it applies better or more often to people who've been out in the work world for a while, is it's nice if you're able to leverage the relationships that you already have. If you know someone who works for that bank in the IT department, or somebody who the IT department is familiar with, that will help you get that job in that organization. We like to hire people we know, or hire people that we are familiar with. And if you have a relationship already, you can take advantage of that. Those of us that have been working for a while, you're 31 years old, you might be part of a local group. There might be people you know at church. There might be folks that you have met that are at your kid's school. All of these folks are people you should talk to. Hey, I'm looking to make a move. If you know anyone who works in IT or has a familiarity with IT in their department, send them my way. Let me give you my resume. Tell them that I'm looking for a position. See if they know anything. We want to help people we know as well. And I always tell people, if you don't have a LinkedIn, now's the time to get one. Because if you've had this LinkedIn for your 7 years of banking and you've been adding people to the LinkedIn, people you know, there is a knack to creating a high quality LinkedIn account. Link those people to your account, have them in there. This is when you can just put one post out on your LinkedIn page and say, hey, I'm looking to make a move. Does anybody know anybody out there looking for IT? Or you can ping people personally, privately on LinkedIn. Hey, just want to let you know, I'm trying to get into IT. I got my certifications. I'm working on this. If you know anybody, send them my way. Let me know. I'll send you my resume. That's another great way to do it. Also, take advantage of some of the events in your area. Occasionally, there can be regional IT events. There might also be, search for this, Cisco user group, Microsoft user group, Palo Alto Networks user group. Find those technology user groups in your geography, in your local area, and go to them. If they have them in person, go to them in person and meet the people who are there and tell them, yeah, I just got this certification. I'm looking to get in this role. What would you suggest I do? You don't even have to ask for a job. Do you have a job? Is there a job at your place? Are you hiring? What's going on? Just ask them. If you were me, what would you focus on? Who would you talk to? What do you think? A lot of people will say, you need to send me your resume. Not because they're immediately impressed by you, which they might be, but almost every organization has a finders program for employees, a internal recruiting program, where if you bring somebody's resume to the company and they hire that person, you get some money in your pocket. There's a financial benefit. There are a lot of people I've worked with in different companies. They are very good at this. They will ask everyone they know for a resume, and they send all those resumes to HR. It's almost like they have a second job, but within the same job. They don't have a second job, but they're making money like they do because they have so many people they know being hired by the company. They're effectively their own built-in recruiting company within the same company kind of scenario, which is what these organizations want to do. Even though they are paying folks within your organization for bringing people to them and hiring them, the amount that they're paying you is so small compared to if they went outside the company for a recruiter. Instead of paying that recruiter thousands of dollars, they're paying you a couple $100. Doesn't seem fair though, now that I put it that way. Maybe you should negotiate a little bit. But those are three things you can think about: is finding those people, finding people you know, setting up the LinkedIn, and going to some of these user groups, because you'll meet these people. These people at the user groups are all in your local area. even if they move to another company, they're still going to be part of that user group. You'll see the same people in your career all the time in your local area. You'll run into them constantly. They'll just recognize you after a while. Like, oh, you're interviewing at our place? Tell them that you talked to me. Those are the types of referrals you want. So a lot of different things you can do. There's always a challenge when you move from one type of career to another that you sort of have to start over to some degree, but maybe you can not start completely over, and maybe you can move up a little bit faster because you've done a number of these things. Let's keep going through your list. I know we're at the top of the hour. We can probably fit one more in here, right? Get another one that we have in this list. A lot of great questions coming in, by the way. Thank you so much for sending these in. It gives me a chance to kind of see where you're thinking in the world of IT and the world of these certification exams and what's important and what people need to know. So thank you for doing that. Let's keep going through this list. A lot in here. Boy, you folks are so good at some of these questions coming in. I just can't get through all of them in this very short period of time that we have. This is, I'm gonna throw this one out because I think I can speak to this one. How do you get out of the mindset that you are not good enough? This is something that in technology, it's in other areas, other places you would go, you'd find this, but in technology, we have this problem constantly. This issue of you are an imposter. How have I got this job? Don't they realize that I only know a little bit of this whole thing that I need to know for this job? The imposter syndrome is an absolute real thing. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Whether this is completely accurate or not, it's my perspective anyway, does never go away. You never know everything. The real interesting part about technology is that you are never going to be in a position where you're bored. Technology is constantly changing. First, you've got this enormous amount of information you need to know today, Ethernet and switching and routing and securing and the different security issues we have to know for security, plus all of those different domains, understanding the cloud pieces of it, understanding the different security controls, understanding the business side of it. There's so much to know just already. And then, like what happened a couple years ago, suddenly new technologies show up. Now there's AI is the big buzzword. But what is AI? And how does that fit into what I'm doing now? There's a whole new set of things I have to learn. I am not good enough with AI. None of us are, because AI is so new. And by the way, you will never know everything about everything. In fact, you'll probably never know everything about any one thing. Technology doesn't give us that much time. I always talk to a lot of people about configuring a system. I have OSPF settings I need to make. Have you looked at the OSPF specification? It's enormous. You will never know everything there is to know about OSPF. You just won't. But you will be configuring and setting it up and connecting systems together with it. Do they know that I don't know everything about OSPF? They do, actually. We absolutely know this. All of us know. Don't worry that other people are looking at you like, I don't think he knows everything. We know you don't know everything. You know how we know that? Because we don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. So one of the things I really tell people all the time is you don't have to know everything, but it would help you if you knew a lot about one thing. So find the one thing you want to learn a lot about. Maybe that one thing is Windows Server. Maybe that one thing is cloud technologies. Maybe that one thing is AI. Find the one thing that you think is really interesting to you. For me, I started my career at the desktop, and I learned everything I could learn about operating systems at the desktop level. And I became very, very knowledgeable of Windows. They sent me off to Microsoft to go get trained. I came back just knowing all of this information about Windows, and I could implement it, and we put it on the network, and it was amazing. And then I had to move into security. I had to move into networking. I had to move, I had to make a different change. At that point, after desktop operating systems, I moved into server administration. Then I moved into network technologies, specifically focused not just on designing and connecting networks, but networks at the protocol level, at the packet level, at the frame level of these, and understanding what really happened on the wire or non-wire if it's a wireless network. And then from there, leverage that to move into security. Every step along the way, I didn't know anything about it getting into it, learned a lot about that particular technology, learned enough that I became very, very knowledgeable in that particular topic, and used that knowledge to leverage into a position doing the next thing. And so that was a common theme, not only for me, this will be a common theme for you as well. You might start at the desktop, learn everything there is to know about Windows. Oh, if you know everything there is to know about Windows, you can leverage that into knowing everything there is to know about Windows Server. If you know everything about Windows Server, you can leverage that in maybe into networking. From networking, you can leverage that into security. So that is a normal flow. And in fact, for IT, this may be something a lot of people may not even think about or realize, but when you are in IT, you never stop learning. There is never a point where you can, at the end of the day, say, well, I learned it all. I guess I don't have to learn anything anymore. You will never be at that point. IT is not that kind of business. And IT never stops evolving. It's constantly changing. It's constantly updating. There are constantly new technologies and new things that you have to know. And it is one where you always have to be reading and watching and learning and getting new certifications. Throughout my IT career, there was never a time where I wasn't studying or working towards the next certification. You're always trying to improve, not only because that's half the fun of this. And if you don't think technology is fun, you may want to rethink this. But for most of us, we're problem solvers. We like a problem. We like solving a puzzle. I think a lot of technologists like solving a puzzle. Maybe not 100% of us, but I think that's an appeal for a lot of us. Here's a problem. How do we fix this problem? To the point that whenever there is a annual meeting, a training session, at the end of the day, everybody goes to the bar, they hang out, have a Coca-Cola, and we don't tend to talk about things not technology related. It's always a technology conversation that tends to take place. And it's always about, you'll never believe the one I had. And we tell the story. And we go through, here's the problem I ran into. Boy, it was a head scratcher, but here's what we did. And they're always interesting stories. And we just go back and forth over, here's what happened in the trenches. Here's the war we were having. Here's the battle we fought. And here's how it turned out. Sometimes we win. Sometimes we lose, but we get to tell the story of whatever happened there. And that's IT. That's what we do. It's a constant process. When I worked for Palo Alto Networks, this was in the end of the part of career where I was working for other people. I was not doing this full time at that point, but they would bring us in for training every quarter. So every 3 months, we had some type of training. Sometimes the training was regional. Sometimes they'd fly us out to corporate and we'd have a big week of training, but it was constant training. And I would leave those training sessions. Here I am at what I really feel was the peak of my technology career as a senior systems engineer for a next generation firewall company that had technology that was changing the world. Nobody else had this technology. This was exciting stuff to talk about. And I would leave those week-long conversations with these incredibly smart people at our corporate offices who were planning, building, and implementing this technology. And I'd leave and think, I don't know any of this. I thought I knew what I was doing. These guys, they really know what they're doing. I'm just trying to keep up. And a lot of us feel that way. It's a normal part of this world. Now, in reality, I was doing okay. I could bring this amazing technology into a customer. We would plug it into their network. I'd run them through what it did. I'd be able to answer their technical questions. Every meeting, someone would ask me a question I didn't know because you can't know everything. But you get very good at being comfortable with not knowing. I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of people do not consider, is that the more comfortable you are with saying, I don't know, the more you will learn. Don't feel like you have to pose or feel like you can't say anything. Some of the best knowledge you will get is when you do this in a training meeting. Could you go over that again? I did not. There was a part there where you skipped over to that. I missed that part. Was not getting it. Could you do that one more time? Okay. And they go do it one more time and you get it. Once they go through that one more time, you've suddenly figured out what it was you missed. And whenever I go to those meetings, I sit in the front, I ask the questions, I go, got it, didn't get it, what does that mean? Do you mean this? Can you clarify? And every time I've gone to those meetings and done that, someone undoubtedly, either right outside the door or at the bar that night, will come over and say, thanks so much for asking those questions today. I had no idea what they were talking about. I said, well, why didn't you say anything? I didn't want to seem like I was a dummy. Like, oh, I'm way past that. I'm happy to be the dummy. The faster you are, the sooner you can turn yourself into being someone who's not afraid to be stupid and just tell people, I don't know it, but if you explain it, I will get it. The more you're going to learn, the faster you're going to learn, and the better technologist you're going to be. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. We all don't know. We're just afraid to tell other people we don't know. We think it's something bad. It's good. It's an opportunity. And at the end of the day, you learn something. And why would you not want to be in a job that just never teaches you anything, that never changes, that is always the same? One of the best things I loved about technology was that there was always something new. Every day was different. Every day was a different experience, and every day I learned something. What's better than that? And that continues even today. You teach me more, I think, than I'm teaching you sometimes. I think that the feedback you're giving us, the things you tell us in the chat and the questions you have here, incredibly insightful. Things that help us understand how to make this world of technology a little bit more understanding for you. So it's a nice circle, I think. I think it's a nice building process for all of us to be able to figure that out. Don't worry about what you don't know, because you're never going to know everything. No, that's a good mindset to have anyway, and that's how I kind of focus on this. I think it's probably a good place to finish up this month's Security Plus study group. Thank you so much for joining us in the first hour. We love doing the Q&A and getting those ready. We had some good ones today. A lot of folks knew what they were talking about. It's always good to have that feeling too. And I think we did learn a few things about other technologies, which is always fun. And thank you for your questions in the second hour as well. There's always something to learn. There's always something to know. And hopefully we can be part of that process for you. We're going over to Discord. We'll be over there the rest of the day. And that's usually where we hang out. We'd love for you to join us over at ProfessorMesser.com/Discord. And of course, don't forget about checking the calendar, because there could always be changes to these dates. We're setting up the calendar for next month's events. You can find that at ProfessorMesser.com/calendar. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks, everybody.